Hi, I'm Jo, and in today's English podcast, we're looking at a common mistake that's often made by English learners. Do you know the difference between the adjectives alone and lonely? People often get them confused. They sound similar, but they actually have quite different meanings. One of them describes a physical state or situation, and the other describes an emotion. Do you know which is which? In this episode, we're going to clear up any confusion for once and for all, in a way that's gentle, human, and hopefully quite comforting. By the end of this episode, you will understand the difference between the adjectives lonely and alone, and you'll know how to use them in natural English. Plus, you'll hear some real-life stories to help you connect with their meanings. You'll learn some vocabulary and idioms for talking about loneliness. And hopefully you'll come away feeling a little more connected to your English, maybe even to yourself. So first things first, let's have a look at the definitions. What's the difference between lonely and alone? Alone means no one else is with you. It describes a physical situation. Lonely, though, is all about emotion. If somebody feels lonely, it means that they feel isolated, disconnected, or maybe unseen. So technically, you could be completely alone and feel perfectly content, but you could also be in a room full of people and feel lonely. By the way, alone is also used as an adverb. You can say, I live alone. Lonely, on the other hand, is always just an adjective. Also, it's worth remembering that lonely as an adjective it usually has negative connotations. We don't use it in a way that can be seen as positive. We never say, I feel wonderfully lonely. That would be a bit strange. Alone is neutral because it's describing this physical state, which could be a positive or it could be a negative. All right, so let's make that difference real. I wanted to introduce you to two characters, Sophie and David. We'll start with Sophie. Sophie is in her 40s and she lives alone in a little cottage. She's a teacher and she works in a secondary school and teaches teenagers. She adores her job, but usually by the end of the week she is absolutely exhausted. Her favourite thing to do on a Saturday morning is to sit in a quiet cafe with a book, completely alone, with nobody asking her questions. Bliss. She's what her friends call a bit of a hermit. She laughs when they say this, because it is partly true. She likes her own company and she enjoys the silence. Does she feel lonely? Not really. She says, I live alone, but I'm not lonely. David is in his 30s. He works in a buzzing London office and he always has plans. Drinks after work, group chats, weekend pub nights. From the outside, he's a classic social butterfly. But here's the thing. Sometimes when he's at a party, surrounded by people, drink in hand, and maybe smiling, he actually feels quite invisible. He laughs along with everybody else, but inside he's thinking, do I really know these people? Do they really know me? It's not about the number of people that are present. It's about the connection, or the lack of connection. And that's at the heart of loneliness. Do you see the difference? Let's pause there and take a look at some of the vocabulary that we can use for talking about being alone and being lonely. First off, in the story we heard that Sophie enjoys her own company. And this means that somebody is happy spending time alone. I'm spending the evening on the sofa with a book. I really enjoy my own company. The next one was a bit of a hermit. Sophie's friends described her as a bit of a hermit, and they meant this in a sort of gentle, teasing way. Somebody who is a hermit is somebody who likes to stay home and avoids socialising. More often than not, when we use the word hermit, we're using it to describe ourselves. I've become a bit of a hermit just lately. I'm not going out very much. The next expression was a social butterfly, and this was the phrase that we used to talk about David. David loves going out. He likes chatting to people and meeting new people. He's a total social butterfly. He's always at some event or party. The next expression I've got is to feel cut off. Now, when somebody feels lonely, they might say that they feel a little bit cut off, and this means disconnected, emotionally disconnected. Since I've moved to a new city, I feel a little bit cut off. The next expression is alone in a crowd. This is when you're physically surrounded by people, but you feel isolated. At the wedding, I felt completely alone in the crowd. Maybe you'd gone to the wedding and you didn't really know many people and you weren't feeling very sociable and you felt quite isolated. The next piece of vocabulary is solitude, which I mentioned before. And solitude is the peaceful, positive side of being alone. I love the solitude of early mornings before the world wakes up. And then finally, me time. This is a casual way to describe time that you use to relax. I need some me time this weekend. No plans, no people. Sophie needs me time every Saturday morning. All these expressions and words give some emotional nuance. So, are you more of a Sophie or a David? Do you, like Sophie, enjoy your own space and your own company and need plenty of me time to recover at the end of a week? Or maybe you're more like David. You're a bit of a social butterfly. You enjoy socialising, but sometimes you feel disconnected from other people, and that can make you feel a bit lonely. I think most of us have been both a Sophie and a David at different points in our lives. Now, I often choose to be alone, and I love it. But there's a big difference between choosing solitude and feeling isolated. So here's the takeaway. Alone is a situation, and lonely is a feeling. One can be peaceful, the other can be quite painful. Okay, let's try a little language challenge. I'm going to give you a few situations and I want you to work out whether the person that I'm describing is alone or lonely. First off, we've got Maria. Maria is on a solo trip in Italy. She's sitting in a quiet cafe, writing in her journal, feeling peaceful and inspired. So, is Maria alone or lonely? What do you think? Well, she's definitely alone. She's not with anybody else. She's on a solo trip. And she seems quite happy. She feels peaceful and inspired. So this would suggest that she's alone and she's not lonely. She's quite content. Next up, Jin. Jin is at a big birthday party. He's smiling, but he doesn't feel like he can talk to anyone about what's really going on in his life. So what about Jin? Is he alone or lonely? What do you think? So he's not alone. He's surrounded by people at the party. But it says that he's smiling, but he doesn't feel like he can talk to anybody about what's going on in his life. This would suggest that Jin is lonely. Next up, Amira. Amira spends most of her evenings by herself. She's not sad, she just loves her own routines. Amira, alone or lonely? Well, Amira is spending time by herself, which means alone, and says she's not sad. So presumably Amira is just alone and not lonely. Finally, Carlos. Carlos lives with flatmates, but he says that he doesn't feel understood or connected. So what about Carlos? Is he alone or lonely? Well, he's not alone. He shares his flat with other people. However, he doesn't feel great. He doesn't feel like he's got good connections with his flatmates. So Carlos sounds pretty lonely to me. Now, in these examples, it's been either or. These people have been either alone or lonely. But of course, it's possible to be both. If you're living on your own and you don't enjoy your own company, you don't enjoy your own space, and you miss spending time with other people, then you could be alone and lonely. Thanks for joining me today. I hope this episode resonated with you in some way. If you've ever felt like either Sophie or David, let me know in the comments. And remember, you're definitely not alone in feeling lonely sometimes. Don't forget that, as usual, you can download the full transcript for today's episode over on my website. It's perfect for shadowing, repeating, or just going through in your own time. I'll be back next week with another episode of the podcast where we talk about language, life, and all the messy stuff in between. Take care, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.